everybody, a very happy Tuesday to all of you, and welcome into a Week 2 edition of the Texans Collective. I am Sean Pendergast. To my right on the screen is Landry Locker, of course, of The Locker Room with Landry Locker and SNL. And down to my caddy corner right there is my colleague Reginald Atatula from Sports Radio 610, middays on In the Loop. And right below me there is Cody Stutes of Houston Football with Cody Stutes and also of SNL. And it's great to be with you guys tonight here on YouTube. And we got a ton to get to off of last night's game at NRG Stadium. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a last-second touchdown beating the Houston Texans 20-19. And there is a ton to dig into, and there has been as much emotion over this loss, especially a Week 2 loss, as any that I think we've all seen, whether it's on social media or on our respective shows and streams. People are fired up about this, and especially given the fact that we're still seeing a lot of the same things that we saw last year when we were promised a lot of change. So get in that chat room, hit us with the comments in there. We'll be mixing some of those in throughout the show today, and we got a ton of topics to get to on the show. And guys, I guess we need to start with the offense. That's the big topic again today. No team has scored fewer points in the NFL so far this year than the Houston Texans. The good news, they finally got into the end zone. Once when the other team was trying, and a second time when the other team may or may not have been trying, depending on how you zapruder the video of Nick Chubb's touchdown to put the Texans ahead 19-14. But this is what everybody is talking about, guys. And I know on the post-game show for me, I said that that Nick Caley is basically just a more hyperactive version of Bobby Slowick. Cody, you called him Bearded Bobby. There's not a lot that looks different from this offense, and that's bad news if you're a Texans fan here 2 weeks in. And I don't think we're asking for much to have more than 28 points through 2 games. So I'm going to toss it out there for you guys. Let's get it started. The conversation, the thing everybody's talking about, what the hell is wrong with this Texans offense right now?
Well, I think they got personnel problems, and I think they got personnel problems that they can't do anything about at this point, and they got personnel problems that they could do some things about. And that to me is the most frustrating thing. It feels like there's kind of a little bit Patriot way, Bill O'Brien factor where the young guys aren't getting to play. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. Jaden Higgins has 4 targets this year. 2 of those targets gone for 20-plus yards. Jalen Null has 1 target. It kind of looks like if you got him in space, he might be able to do something on offense. And Woody Marks, we all saw what we saw in camp. We know what his superpower is. And a week off of Dare Ogunbowale fumbling away the game, you have a Woody Marks 37-yard reception early on, and then there's pretty much an even share between him and Dare Ogunbowale. And, oh, by the way, Ogunbowale has some lowlights of the game when it comes to pass pro. And Woody Marks has probably the best highlight when it comes to pass pro. So I think it's as much, and we can get into the quarterback thing, but I just want to focus on the personnel side of things because I don't want to just dive into this because I know we've been talking about this all day, but they got personnel problems that they can't do anything about on the offensive line. And it almost feels like the coach isn't even putting the personnel that he has in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, you talked about personnel problems. That hit me right where I live. The thing that has upset me the most about this team is the small window. You have to forgive me. I'm a soccer fan. So there's like a transfer window when you can actually make your stuff happen. And then otherwise you can't make personnel adjustments. And that's kind of what it is for offensive line. You ain't getting no better on the offensive line in the season. That's an off-season proposition. You don't have as high of a ceiling as you possibly could offensive line talent-wise because you decided to operate in a certain way, and you're seeing some of the effects of that. The whole idea is if we can get them all to pull in the same direction, this looks a lot better. They were largely pulling in the same direction. They just got whooped. And so, like, that's one of those things that's the most frustrating watching this game is it feels like a lot of I told you so in that regard. There's also other things outside of personnel because that looked like a game called by a first-time play caller without experience in week 2 against a team that has an identity and is going up against a Todd Bowles that is very good and knows what he's doing as a defensive play caller. There was a number of things that was frustrating that was over the boundary of the offseason, over the boundary of training camp, that are things that you're supposed to address that felt like they were unaddressed. That was the thing that really kept sticking in my craw.
I was promised that strengths would be accentuated and weaknesses would be hidden. And I have my receipt here that says that. So if I need to return the offensive coordinator to the offensive coordinator store, I will do just that. Okay. I will do just that. For a coach and a quarterback who multiple times in the preseason, multiple times in the lead up to this year, saying we can operate the offense that can help out the offensive line, and then to do the exact opposite of that through 2 games is really annoying to watch on the football field. To have these long developing, takes time to get guys open plays, moments where the offensive line just throws up on themselves and allows pressure or allows a sack, and then to have the quarterback not be able to hit some of that quick stuff when it is there and when it is seen, that's really disappointing, because through the entirety of the offseason that we've talked about, Nick Caley stood there, and he was a part of it. And he had his buddy Cole Popovich, who got promoted to offensive line coach, sit there and co-sign everything they were doing on this offensive line. Like, this is the offensive line they decided to go to battle with. And then they went out there for 2 consecutive games and didn't play a style of offense that's conducive to letting that offensive line help you and avoiding them hurting you. And that's a really annoying aspect of this thing too. So that's something Nick Caley's in control of, in addition to who he decides to put on the field and who he decides to not put on the field, like what Landry talked about. So that's a really disappointing aspect of the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, see, I keep all my receipts in a folder on my phone. I don't keep them on paper like you do, Cody. And I asked to talk to the manager on things like this. So I will be asking to talk to the manager. The part of this game where I felt the most jilted as a Texans fan and media member, where we were told all sorts of things in July and August, we were fed a bunch of stuff, was when they lined up in gun on 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. And I said to myself, hey, Self, they told us that this room had dogs in it now. I was told there were dogs in this room. I was told that they thirsted for physicality. I was told that they thirsted for pushing people back. And we're in gun on 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, or I'm sorry, 2nd and goal from the 1, 3rd and goal from the 1, 4th and goal from the 1. They try and run a zone read or an RPO or whatever it was with CJ. And actually, if CJ kept the ball, he could have probably walked into the end zone, but he hands it off to Nick Chubb. They were not respecting at all the possibility of CJ keeping that football. But the 3rd down and 4th down plays, and I heard people actually defending this 3rd down play because, well, boy, if CJ, if he puts it on him right there, that's a touchdown. That doesn't negate the fact that there were probably 200 other plays in the playbook from the 1-yard line that had a much higher percentage chance of dipping it into a bucket where you've got a cornerback and you've got the end line and the sideline acting as a 2nd and 3rd defender. And then on 4th down, if it's possible to run an even lower percentage play, they run it away from CJ's arm. This was Nick Caley's early moment of reckoning in the early part of the season here, where I'm not saying he's going to win people over by scoring a touchdown from the 1-yard line, but you sure as hell can lose a lot of people by not scoring from the 1-yard line. That was a debacle. That's the part where I felt like everything we've been fed for the last 3 months about what the culture change in this room was going to be, where this is going to be, boy, they're not as talented, but they're going to bust some guys in the mouth and they're going to go down swinging. You're in gun from the 1-yard line 3 times in a row. That was awful. That was inexcusable.
And your veteran that you brought in, who's supposed to be kind of the guiding light for that room, just got mauled by Vita Vea and just pushed right into Nick Chubb, and Vita Vea went out there and made the play. So pretty ugly.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Reg.
Yeah, in addition to that, when it comes to mauling, I was also promised, as we were bringing out receipts, I was promised that CJ Stroud would have a lot more opportunity to get his rocks off in a way. And that zone read upset me to no end, right? Because it wasn't a zone read. This was just handoff. Because again, if that is indeed a zone read, we might need to come for CJ's throat, because the key is that edge, and that edge couldn't have dove inside more. That should have absolutely been a pull. So yeah, no, you have that is there. I'm just looking at Nick Caley, and I understand this is your first time doing this. I understand also that this is a system that requires a lot of repetition to get yourself there. All of these things are things that we knew. It doesn't make it any less frustrating, but it does make it a lot more frustrating when you get to this place and you have these moments that you absolutely can just make the small thing to get yourself over.
See, I am someone who thinks CJ's got to throw a throwable ball there, though, and that is me. I mean, there were multiple passes that CJ could have made that could have changed this game. I point to that one where you're not even giving the guy a chance. I point to the one where they set up for a field goal where He didn't give Watson a chance. I point to the one after the blocked punt where Hutchinson is going to catch the ball in stride inside the 20, and who knows what happens instead of settling for a field goal. So I'm tired of letting CJ off the hook at this point, because all this crap that we're talking about, first year, the things that I've heard the most have been, there's a first year play caller. Baker Mayfield has a first year play caller for the third straight season. The third straight season he has a first time play caller. The offensive line. Well, Baker Mayfield has a center playing left tackle, and one of his best tackles is out of the game. Will Anderson had 10 pressures. I venture to say that if Will Anderson was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and he had 10 pressures, he would have ended up with more than one sack. So as much as we want to, Christian Kirk's out. Okay, there's a guy named Chris Godwin that's out for the Bucs. He's having to figure it out with rookie wide receivers. So I think I look at this and I agree with everything that everyone's saying, but all the issues on the offense that the Texans had, you can make a case that Tampa Bay had. Here's my problem though, with outside of just going in shotgun on the 1 yard line. This is another thing that I have a serious effing problem with. It's actually maddening. If there was ever a time to have Nick Chubb on your football team, I don't care if it's Yokozuna, Viscera, Earthquake, and every fat wrestler in the WWE at the front of the line of scrimmage, Nick Chubb for 1 yard is the sales pitch that I always get. I always hear about these squats. Quite frankly, I've seen him fall forward where he probably should have lost yards this year. That's one of the things that he's done the best. So if there's ever a time where there's 1 yard, by the way, I thought I saw a QB sneak last week. I guess you just don't do that whenever Vita Vea is there. So that's the other issue. And here's the other thing. If you're going to go shotgun, when you put Dare Ogunbowale in the game, there's no threat to run the ball. Nobody in the world. Just put Nick Chubb out there. If you're go with 10 guys, because Dare at least is going to, maybe the non-guy will not get in CJ Stroud's way. It is ridiculous to put Dare Ogunbowale back there, because no one's even thinking that you're going to throw the ball or run the ball when Dare Ogunbowale is back there. But that was my issue. And I had as big of an issue, I might be getting ahead of myself, with the grab ass that they were playing at the end of the first half, where I know that CJ ended up running into inside the 50 after the 2-minute warning. But this was a lot like a lot of times last year where they just didn't look like they had any interest in scoring. They pick up 7 yards on first down on Woody Marks on a run. And then they let 20 whatever seconds go off the clock, and they just decide, we don't want to score. We're okay. That bothered me as much as anything, and it's the same stuff as last year is what's just as frustrating.
D'Amico operates like he doesn't know you're allowed to score touchdowns in the last 2 minutes of the half. He operates like you're only allowed to score field goals at the end of the half. It's weird.
But with D'Amico, the thing that gets me is, like, is he an aggressive or is he a conservative head coach just generally? Because it's goes both ways at various points. And I don't know which to find the consistency within, or there's no consistency within there. And so I think that's really the issue. For me personally, with coaching decisions, if you can stand by it and give me a good reason, I'm usually willing to go with you. But I mean, if we're talking about any level of statistics, you have to go with this consistent approach for those statistics to hit. And you're going up and down with a conservative approach at the end of the half, but then going forward on fourth down when you're in the red zone. It just doesn't feel like it fits the same. And that's something that's carried over for the entirety of D'Amico's career to this point.
And that's something that you would have hoped, at least being confident in your offense or new offensive coordinator, like that, you would have hoped something would have settled down so they know, hey, in these situations, we're always going to have our foot to the gas, or, hey, maybe we just kind of play it nice and easy because, 3 points would do a lot for us here because we trust the defense. But no, it's unsettled. And while we're talking about D'Amico's use of timeouts or lack of use of timeouts, I don't know, Kaimi could hit a 60-yarder inside. You didn't want to give yourself 30 or so seconds there at the end.
He called
your timeouts at the end.
First of all, you kind of hinted that maybe Tampa Bay let Chubb score. Who knows? I mean, maybe not. I don't know. But at the end of the game, once Henry To'oTo'o, by the way, what a terrible final drive for him. My gosh, that was a rough go for him. But D'Amico used 2 timeouts when the clock was stopped. He didn't even save any time. He used 2 timeouts when the clock was stopped. And I kind of got annoyed with all the talk about the Tampa Bay game last time. D'Amico seemed to be okay talking about it. it would have been nice if he would have remembered that, you had 45 whatever seconds left after Tampa Bay scored late, and that gave you the chance to have this game that we're still talking about damn near 700 days later. So it's almost like, I don't know if there's like some sort of regression. I don't know if he's just almost so defensive minded that it's like, well, if the defense can't get a stop here, we don't deserve to win the game. But whatever the hell that was at the end of the game, I mean, save yourself 25 seconds, 30 seconds. Like, just, you don't need to call these timeouts when the clock is stopped to sit there and rally the troops and tell them to swarm. Like, just figure it out.
Sorry, they needed a swarm reminder. These timeouts are valuable. You got to remind them that you got to swarm, man. You got to swarm.
Remember, Bucky Irving can't stop us if we have the power of swarm.
Swarm. Dude, that's true, Landry. Has any player on defense had two play? I think that was a 3-play series. I think Baker converted the fourth down on the scramble, got to about midfield, and then they hit Cade Otton for about 8 yards. And then the very next play was the Bucky Irving. Got it to him in space. And watching Azeez Al-Shaair near Bucky Irving, I felt like I was watching a relative about getting in slow motion, getting thrown in front of a bus. I'm like, oh my God, that he is going to just undress Azeez, which he did. And Azeez ends up making the tackle because 5 other assholes missed the tackle on him. So Azeez ends up making the tackle anyways because the other 5 guys slowed him down with missed tackles long enough for Azeez to run up and catch him. That was the Baker scramble, which obviously Toa whiffed on badly, was like that was the left that kind of staggered you a little bit. The Bucky Irving catch with the 3 or 4 broken tackles there, that was the one where whoever was sitting next to me in the press box, I can't remember, I think it was Byron was sitting next to me. I said, they're losing this game. They're going to lose. That was the play where I'm like, they're going to lose this game because they're not tackling. They're sloppy. They're out of sorts. You look down at the box score, and that's play number 66 or whatever it is. They've run 45 plays. That was a rough sequence. And Henry To'oTo'o with the whiff on Baker, and then the attempted shoulder tackle on a guy who probably had broken 20 tackles that night up to that
gave him an extra 10, 15 yards, whatever it was. And he almost felt like if you're ever at a blackjack table and you lose just a hand in heartbreaking fashion, and then you're just kind of there and you're just going through the motions. It almost felt like D'Amico thought he had his perfect hand when he dialed up that blitz with Henry To'oTo'o, and he was just sitting there with a blank stare on his face, waiting to get his free drinks. And he wasn't even in the game at that point. Like, it almost felt like he was just completely winded, and they had no interest in trying to win the game after that bust by To'oTo'o, because he dialed up a perfect. I mean, that was exactly what you wanted, and it just didn't go down. And then after that, that's when we saw what we saw at the end of the first half or second half. Excuse me.
5 card 21, pretty tough to come back from.
Yeah, that's what happened.
That was 5 card Charlie.
5 card 21. You don't feel good after one of those. That's when you look around like something bad's happened and you get up from the table.
Oh, dude, and not excusing the way the rest of that goes, but like that feels like as much as Henry To'oTo'o obviously ends up being the main character in the worst way on that. The entire linebacker core, honestly, a good amount of the secondary, it all felt so uncharacteristic from at least the high points or a majority of the points last year for this defense. I go back to training camp when we had the opportunity to talk to Matt Burke. And one of the things I asked him about was, hey, when it comes to tackling, like, what do you do tangibly to make that better? And the thing that he harped on is, all right, tackling itself, the actual act of tackling, there's only so much you can do. What the things that you're going to rep and try and get better at are the things leading up to the tackle, the angles that you take, the breakdowns in essence. And those were the things that it looked like they were terrible at. You mentioned the Bucky Irving, like these guys are taking bad angles. Some of them early on, I'm like, okay, you're trying to force that guy back inside. What's your excuse, man, number 2? What's your excuse, man, number 3? That's something that I don't understand, because you pair that with, correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, Kalen Bullock has not looked like Kalen Bullock of last year. Kamari Lassiter hasn't looked like Kamari Lassiter of last year. CJ Gardner-Johnson hasn't looked like the man that's been billed. It feels like there's a lot of regression all the way around this defense that I can't really put my finger on.
So you're saying Eric Murray is the missing
Mm-hmm.
That is I had a thought earlier today, and I was like, this is an absurd thing to think. However, It would fit a little bit better than anything else I'm coming up with right now.
See, I think Bullock does look like the Bullock of last year. I think that he just was able to take advantage of the big opportunities, the interceptions, maybe not even so much. Because when I asked Bullock at camp, I said, hey, what do they say you need to work on most? And I asked D'Amico the same thing. They said eye discipline. And it feels like the eye discipline is still a big concern for Kalen Bullock. Now, I will defend him on the Ibuka touchdown because Charlie Heck just kicked him. Like he literally tripped him, like rolled out and just kicked him. Sean's old neighbor, Charlie Heck, kicked him. Don't know if the way they're tackling.
Right down below me right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether they still make the tackle or not, I will say that. But yeah, I'm with you. The safeties, I would say if we were listing the most disappointing, and the definition of disappointing, I think, is based on expectations for me. Like no one's pleased with this offensive line. I didn't really expect.
They're still disappointing.
I agree, but when it comes to what I expected, the safety position is probably at the top of most disappointing things we've seen these first two games.
So as far as the defense goes, since we're all talking on defense right now, so I'll throw this out to you guys. Like, where are we at with the defense through two games? On the one hand, they've allowed 17 points per game, and they've been the reason the Texans have had a chance to win these games. It's certainly not the offense, although I would submit special teams, especially in the fourth quarter, was huge last night. I mean, they were between the block punt and the Jalen Noel punt return. That's why the Texans scored the last 9 points that they scored. Because they certainly weren't moving the ball up and down the field at that point in the game. Time of possession last night, 37 minutes to 23 minutes. First downs, 25 to 12. These are all things that are in the advantage of Tampa Bay from last night. They rushed the ball 30 times for 169 yards. They ran 72 plays. The Texans ran 46 plays. And through the first two games of the season, the Texans defense is allowing 13 of 27 on third down conversion rates, which is terrible. And yet they've only allowed 17 points per game. Where are you guys on the defense right now? There's obviously a lot to fix, and Tampa Bay bullied them last night in the run game and was able to possess the ball throughout that game. Where are you guys at with them right now as far as, if you were to grade them or what your vibe is on the defense 2 games in and heading into obviously a very important stretch of schedule here?
Not elite. I mean, that was the goal. I said it was their superpower. It hadn't been a superpower. It's been good. It's not fair. It's just reality. Like you can go back and say that elite defenses perhaps have this team at 2-0. You stop the Rams on 4th and goal from the 1. You might end up winning that ball game. Azeez Al-Shire, when Baker Mayfield throws you a gift, props to you for going stride for stride with the Ibuka, but you catch that ball. Couple other opportunities when you have an opportunity to stop them late. So I would just say 2 games in, I'm not dismissing the possibility of them becoming elite. I still think there's a hell of a lot there. But if we're just talking about this 2-game sample size, good, not elite, not a superpower.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you. And one of the things that's weird is I'm wondering if they've been figured out to some degree. Now, of course, there's still going to be a good defense just based off of what this defense is. But it feels like week 1, you had a commitment to trying to stop the run. They were loading up the box at the 4th highest rate of anybody in the NFL in week 1. Week 2, it feels like they backed that off a good amount. And then what you see is a team that just goes, I'm calling your defensive tackles the B word, and I'm running at you consistently and over and over and over again. And so I'm wondering if now defense, in addition to obviously we saw the ways that you can get elite pass catchers into the slot and really take advantage of the Texans that way. It feels like offenses are just like, we are going to pick at the place that we know we can get at, and we'll get just enough to make this tough on you, especially since your offense is not going to force the game script on us.
Yeah, look, this is one of those things where the defense was excellent last year, and I do wonder if teams have taken notice of how they operated last year, and they're willing to use some of the way that they operate against them. There was a lot of aggressive play from the defense last night that went against the Houston Texans. Go watch Will Anderson on run plays. He used to be a 2-way defensive end. He'd help on the run, he'd help on the pass. The Buccaneers just ferried him out of plays because he would just fire off the ball up the field and they would just let him go. And then he's not in the play and he's looking around for where's the play going to be. And usually you see 51 there in the pile making things happen. Anytime you saw Foley Fatukasi go in there, they pushed him around like a shopping cart.
Man, he was ready. He should have stayed out. He should have stayed out for the halftime show with all the shuffling he did during the. I mean, he was backing it up like crazy. I know they had the Cupid shuffle going. He was during
fully out there with Cupid at halftime. It's 91 uniform.
He was doing it to the back part was impressive. I mean, he was going back 15 yards. I've never seen someone do that. They don't have big enough dance floors on the wedding for that. But and this is the other thing that I'm confused about, and this kind of goes back to the bits of like liking guys and romanticizing guys and stuff. I thought Tommy Togiai was the most like consistent player on the team. He's been inactive twice. You say that, and then he gets a contract extension, and then you got Foley Fatukasi doing the Cupid shuffle like the whole time. Like, what's going on with that too? That's we're talking about the defense. I'm confused by that.
Well, here's one thing you know about the defense is D'Amico Ryans is going to work really hard at shoring up some of those issues so that you don't see them in a week-to-week fashion. He's going to do everything he can. There's some things he can't shore up, like Jalen Petry's not going to get good at coverage within a week, but he'll change the defensive tackle rotation if he needs to. He'll get on to Toto and Aziz and all these linebackers about how they played, and things should look a little bit better on defense because he's got a little bit of a track record of fixing things when they go wrong on defense. Like, that's a positive coming out of this for the defense, which is, for 40 game minutes, they didn't give up a point, and then they give up a point. They finally break there at the end, and no chance for the offense because there's only 6 seconds left on the clock at the end. But I have at least a little bit of trust that D'Amico Ryan's going to adjust and fix some of these things and fine tune this defense to where they're going to have moments where they do feel elite, even if they're not elite, bell to bell in games.
I have an issue with the swarm mentality, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I feel, I know. This is I realized I just walked into church and said that the book of John, Ecclesiastes, they're all just garbage. That's what I'm saying right now. The book of swarm is trash. I honestly feel like some of the penalties, the missed tackles, the shitty run fits, all the lack of discipline that goes on with this defense, I feel like it is part and parcel of the swarm mentality. I feel like some of these guys feel like the swarm mentality is a license just to run around like a bunch of psychos out there and get out over their skis. And that's why they get beat. That's why play action, they're running up the field. So I am here, and Payne and Pendergast was declared this morning a swarm-free zone. In fact, we had several people sending in alternate acronyms for SWARM. Things like swing wildly and randomly miss. And then we would stand up and yell, swarm. We would read the acronyms. I am here to spit on the gospel of swarm today. I don't want to hear about swarm anymore. I don't want to hear that I'm cool with penalties of aggression, but the pre-snap penalties are really the ones that are so bad. Because I watched Christian Harris get a face mask while they were back down on the 1 yard line. And
celebrate.
Swarm.
Wait, it didn't help that Will Anderson celebrated a Baker Mayfield rush for a first
1
down
yard gain. Baker talked shit to him too. Baker got up and like pointed at the scoreboard. That was dumb. Will tackling Baker and doing the.
That's a low point for Will so far.
Dude, that's almost the equivalent of the guys that do this after a dude drops the ball, or that get up and celebrate a tackle that's 10 yards downfield. Like, you get up and do the point at the sky thing when you're tackling a dude that got 2 yards on a 3rd and 1. Bad news, man.
But I feel like, just like the guy who, no fly zone on a play that he didn't make, like this is a requirement for the way that this goes. Much like with a defensive back, you have to have irrational confidence because you are doing something that's insane. He gets to run forwards, I run backwards, he knows where he's going, I don't, and I have to stop him. That's kind of insane. But when you look at this defense, and it is predicated on these guys playing fast and physical, because it's not like there's a schematic advantage with, like you're looking at Todd Bowles where they've got fancy blitzes happening or anything happen. This is the requirement is we keep this relatively simple so these dudes can play fast and physical and we can hit people. And this is the downside of it when you don't toe that line perfectly. So I hear you on the swarm, and I think this is the negative side of it. It will pay dividends in other ways, but I can't really make you feel better about this because the margin for error all the way around this team is so slim. And for the defense, it's even slimmer because they were supposed to carry the load while the offense is trying to get their stuff together.
Yeah.
When was the last time a D'Amico Ryans blitzer. I'm not talking about like, oh, Will or Daniil made the play because there was extra pressure. Like, when was the last time a blitzer got home and just like dominated a quarterback at the point where he made contact? Because Jalen Petrie is like a heat-seeking missile that never gets out of your own airspace.
It lands in the ocean.
They blitz him constantly, and he doesn't breathe on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like, they'll send Aziz sometimes, nothing. And yeah, sometimes the pressure helps, and then Will or Daniil or Sheldon Rankins will go make the play. But the blitzing and the timing of some of the blitzing, and I always think back to that ill-timed blitz against Carolina 2 years ago, when even Bryce Young could figure out the blitz was coming and he could just get rid of it. Like, some of these QBs are so ready. They're so ready for the DeMeco Ryans. Whoop, there's 5. I know he can't cover and he's close to the line of scrimmage, so he's probably coming. I'll just find the guy that's going to be wide ass open because he vacated the area. I'm tired of the blitzes not getting home.
Well, yesterday there was a play, and this isn't even a blitzing. This is the other Petrie part of the experience. There was a play where Sterling Shepard was lined out. Sterling Shepard, yes, he's still in the league. He was lined up to the left side, and Jalen Petrie was man-to-man on him. It was a third down. Baker Mayfield might as well have cut the field in half because he wasn't even looking this way. He was going to Sterling Shepard no matter what. Nobody said that since the days that he was in Oklahoma. Like, nobody said that since his college days. And Baker Mayfield just decided, okay, throw it to him. Well, first down, there you go. The Petrie
that was on third down too, by the way.
Yeah, the Petrie thing is interesting where, I mean, I don't know how they're going to juggle this. I know that every once in a while something good will happen. It seems like he's kind of taking a beating too, being that size, that close to the line of scrimmage, which was another question about the extension. But it doesn't feel like DeMeco's making it much easier on himself, having to figure out when he wants 5 out there, when he doesn't want 5 out there, how Christian Harris fits into this whole thing, and all of that. So it's kind of a tough problem that we saw last week, and we saw kind of come to life this week as well.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that is the whole idea of having the small nickel that you in theory can cover, but also has that physicality, is that you don't have to make that question or that call every down. We have this guy out here constantly. It feels like they have opened themselves up more to the idea of throw out Jalen Smith, throw J-Rock out there a little bit. Obviously a lot more base defense where you have 3 linebackers, and you might see a defense, I'm guessing, over the course of the season, especially towards the middle, maybe the end, where they are making more of those. This is more of a pass situation. We might have true nickel situation, and this is maybe more of a run situation, and we actually have more base. It does feel like that's the case, but then that also becomes, are you making the right call in those particular situations? That's another variable that adds in.
Where are you guys with CJ right now? And I don't mean just as a quarterback, but do you get the sense that there's that the house isn't totally in order right now? A lot of high school telephone games going on with press conferences here. You know, like you got DeMeco last night talking about communication issues, and then CJ comes in, gets out, hey, DeMeco said this. And then CJ comments on it. And then CJ talks about confidence that they need to get. And then DeMeco does his press conference today. And I know you guys were there. And hey, CJ said this about confidence. What do you have to say about that? What's your sense, not just where CJ's at as a quarterback, but kind of where he's at and where others are at with him, around the operation right now?
For me, it feels like he is doing the thing in a new relationship where everybody's walking on eggshells. That's kind of because it feels like Nick Haley has come in. There's this strict adherence to the system. You could see him going through his progressions very quickly. You could see him hitting the top of his drop, usually and getting the ball out. That was a little bit different last night, but it feels like he is very much sticking to what I imagine the system is telling him to do. Hey, look, go these places. And I'm waiting desperately for the time where he does something I feel like Tom Brady absolutely did, which is say, all right, the system's cool, but bump that in this instance. I'm going here and doing these other things, because otherwise your system ends up being more of a boundary to him, right, than a support and something that allows him to do good things. He still has to play significantly better, making a lot more of these passes that are available to him. He needs to be able to be a lot more confident and get these balls out in that first window, as opposed to letting these receivers go to that second window. And some of that is getting more comfortable with the system. But some of it, I just wonder, is can you just get outside of the system at times and make a play? Because at times it feels like the system is actually more of a burden than it is a help.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Reggie, because the last time that I felt bell to bell, man, CJ Stroud played an entire game that only a handful of guys in the league could have survived and made it work. Was last year at home against the Colts. They win 23-20. It was coming off of that terrible week in Green Bay where they just had played so bad and the pressure had been so constant. And then somehow, some way, they had as much pressure and sometimes more pressure at home in that game against the Colts. And he just had the cape on. And he was just awesome, and he made it happen. They lost Diggs in the middle of that game, and he went out there and they won that football game against the Colts, and there's only like 5 guys that could replicate that game that day in the National Football League. And basically every performance since then, someone else in the league could have done exactly what CJ does, and a number of guys could have done better and given the Texans a better chance to win. So I don't know how they go back and find the guy that could put the cape on, but that guy's missing in action right now.
Look, the problem I have, and he's about to be eligible for the extension, is I think we're closer to Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy feeling than we are the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson feeling when you give even Deshaun Watson. Like I'll be fair, I won't rewrite history. When the Texans paid Deshaun Watson, I had no doubts that was the right decision.
Yep.
There was no hesitation. So The feeling that I had about Deshaun Watson at this point in his career compared to CJ, and he was coming off a torn ACL, I felt great. And I don't feel great about CJ Stroud. Here's the other thing that I'm just kind of wondering, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we've tried to solve this mystery and tried to figure it out. Everything looks the exact same. The lollygagging, all that type of stuff, as he said it all looks the exact same with CJ Stroud, and he's been the constant. And I go back to last year, and you kind of, because Stutes, what you said is true. That's the last time you felt great. I go back to last year, and I just remember where the guy is openly sitting there saying he's not having fun. That's weird. I'm sorry, that's weird. Like I don't hear franchise quarterbacks come out even when they're struggling and say, I'm just not having fun playing football right now. I just got to find my way to have some fun. I've never heard Baker Mayfield say that. I don't think I heard Jared Goff say that when he was struggling. I don't hear that. So if that's something that we got to be concerned about, I think that's just a whole nother element of things. There's something going on. It's not the offensive coordinator. It's not the offensive line. It's not the receivers. I've seen people even throw out the Tank Dell thing. Tank Dell had 3 catches or less in 6 games last year. I think he had 3 or less in 3, 1 or less in 3. Like it wasn't. It's not a receiver. It's not an offensive lineman. It's something going on with CJ. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly there. It's undeniable. You can see it. You can just see the way that he's acting. And this is how, Reggie, we talked about Eric Murray, and you kind of go back and you go, was Eric Murray the problem with the defense? And it's sad, but that's just kind of what you wonder as you watch the safeties play. It's weird. This is where my mind's arrived in the last 6 hours as I try to figure this out. There's something mental going on. And I also wonder if the extra coach on the field, Case Keenum, was more important than we think he was. Like whether it's CJ Stroud sitting by Case Keenum going over cards, whether it's Case Keenum, because we've been around Case Keenum. He's a funny guy. He's pretty good. He's probably pretty good for like your mental state. And like coming off the field, kind of moping around, like Case Keenum has the personality and he has the smarts to not only help you see things, but he also has that personality to kind of make you laugh. Even if you're just walking around the locker room. So I'm just wondering if that extra coach on the field was a little bit more important, because that was, I try to look back to the rookie season and say, well, what was here? Well, Bobby Slowick, they obviously thought he stunk. The offensive line might've actually been worse and he was still okay. So Case Keenum was there. So maybe that's how it is. And maybe that's just where my brain's going, because I'm trying to solve a really confusing mystery about a guy that I was excited to give franchise quarterback money to now I'm sitting here and putting him in the same category as how the Jags fans feel about Trevor Lawrence and the contract they gave him. That's just where
if that's the case, if Case Keenum is that important to CJ Stroud, then shame on the Texans for letting Case Keenum walk, because that's one of the easiest things to do, is to hang on to Case Keenum in Houston, Texas, right? I'm guessing Case Keenum would rather be an emergency quarterback in Houston with this team than be an emergency quarterback behind Tyson Bagent and Caleb Williams in Chicago temperatures come November of this year
Sure.
for 3 or 5 million or whatever it would have cost. If he's that important to the operation and they didn't sense that, or if CJ didn't speak up and say he's that important to the operation, whatever the case, if that's the case, Landry, that's a massive fail by the org. It's a massive fail by somebody in not keeping Case Keenum.
I think what you're alluding to is like obviously environment, and Case Keenum ends up being maybe one of the things you can point to. It does feel like he's just not playing instinctually, right? Like I think that that's part of it, right? When you go to trying to get to the bottom of why is it not fun for him, and I mean, you can do the thing where you worry about, you know, what that means for him if he has the temperament for this. That's something that is, you know, you can do. I'm looking at the circumstances, and I do feel like, hey, having the opportunity to get the ball down the field is something that's inherently something that he likes to do. He wasn't able to do that very well last year because of pressure. This year, it feels like the system does not really lean into getting the ball downfield, at least not yet. And, you know, some of those things where it's like, hey, the freedom and to go and do some of the things where I can play instinctually. I'm not having to think whether it's because I have people in front of me and I have to worry about if this offensive line is going to make the play, or it's because I need to go 1, 2, 3 in this progression. I think that those things are pulling him away from the things that allow him to play instinctually where he is the best version of himself. How far along and how quickly are they able to get there? I don't know. And if they are able to get there, is still something that remains to be seen. I
wonder if he's a guy that doesn't like getting coached hard. And I wonder if Bobby tried to. We heard the square peg round hole. Well, that was, you know, oh, they didn't let him do this. They didn't let him do that. Okay, well, you change it, and there's a lot that you have to do in a short amount of time. Once you change everything, you got to pick up, get on the same page with Nick Caley and all this kind of stuff. And it just feels like if you told, like, Reggie, you're talking about instincts. We've talked about confidence. Like CJ, I wonder if he looks in the mirror every day and he's like, why won't they just let me be me? Yeah. Okay, like you might have a point, CJ. If that's the case, like you might have a point, because when he had the extend the play, improvise, gunslinger 2023, and then everything's so segmented and run the offense in 2024, and it didn't look good, and now we got a whole new offense for you, CJ. Do you like this one? You know, can you run this? And then just last week, he's like, yeah, you know, we gotta. You know, sometimes you don't overcoach guys. Sometimes you just let players go out there and play. You don't want to do too much with them, you know, and you want to put them in positions to succeed. It's like, is he a guy that doesn't get coached hard and doesn't take coaching hard well?
That's worth asking. I do want to ask you guys to that point, though. Do you feel like this offense was something that he had an opportunity to select, or is even the best offense for him? That's a question I'm interested in your eyes on.
See, it's hard for me to say because of how good that first year was. Like, you know, and that's the problem that I have is I look at how good that first year was, and it's like, okay, well, now we're going to this offense. I really don't know whether he had the power to select it or not. I just know that it looks exactly the same as the other ones. So just think about this. Last year they had the 5-game streak where they didn't score a touchdown in the second half. Was it 5 games? It was damn near a month.
Yeah, it was in there.
That's what happened yesterday. I mean, yesterday they come out and they score on the first 2 possessions, and then they just go flat. They score. They wait till the end. They score the Chubb touchdown. It just kind of looked the exact same. So I don't know whether he did or didn't, and quite frankly, I don't know whether it's a good thing if he got to or not. So that's I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there. We're throwing a lot of stuff out there because we're trying to make sense of it, because it just feels crazy that it is where it's at right now with the offense.
Go ahead, Cody. Go ahead.
This is also too. This is a seminal moment in CJ Stroud, the football player, too, because let's think about who he was, and let's think about where he played college football, and now let's think about the situation that he's in. I bet you it's been a really, really long time since CJ Stroud has lost 3 straight football games. A really long time. Because they lost the playoff game and they started 0-2 start this year. So I bet it's been a really long time. Now, as I say that, he literally lost in college and then started 0-2. But you had excuses as a rookie. Now it's like, how do you respond with the challenges? Like, a lot of the stuff's on him. I get there's stuff around him that's not good, but like stuff he's in control of, he's not doing well at that. and he's got to be the force that fixes it. Like Gerard Johnson can go out there and make the throw for him. Nick Caley can't, make the throw to Nico Collins. Bill Lazor can't go out there and see the open guy and make the throw. Like CJ's got to do it.
Well, and he had a more talented receiving core at Ohio State than he has right now. He had more the guys he had in his receiving core at Ohio State all wound up being first-round picks. He had a more talented receiving core at Ohio State going against obviously far lesser defenses than NFL defense, going against Minnesota and Northwestern and all these schools and whatnot. So I thought about that earlier, guys, and I forget at what point in the conversation I'm thinking, man, CJ, I was just thinking back to Ohio State and how easy it looked every Saturday for him. And now everything is so difficult for this offense. A 5-yard gain is difficult for this offense. They make nothing look easy at all. And it's funny, Cody, you bring up the 0-2 start in his rookie year. I remember being up in the press box. They lost to the Ravens that first week, but it was close at halftime, but you expected them to lose. I think they scored 9 points in that game too, if I'm not mistaken, the same way they scored 9 in the opener this year. And then the Colts were the week 2 game, and that was the game where the Colts raced out in front, the 2 Anthony Richardson rushing touchdowns. He gets knocked out of the game. Minshew comes in. Minshew's amazing. But CJ in the second half of that game was zipping the ball all over the place. Granted, probably against soft defenses. But I remember the tone of the press conferences being not nearly as dire as the press conference was last night at 0-2. I remember being up in the press box and saying to somebody sitting along that row of 6'10" people, might have been Clint as we were getting ready to go down to the postgame. I'm like, well, one thing I know, CJ Stroud ain't the problem, because he threw for about 320 yards in that game. And
384.
Was it okay? So he threw for almost 400 yards in that game.
He also had a hurt shoulder. Remember, Andre Ware wanted him not to play because he was playing behind 2 bad offensive linemen. He actually had a hurt shoulder, and then he goes up there and says, "I'm going to do whatever." I heard he got to the stadium very early and got there, but I'm with you.
Playing behind 2 bad offensive linemen. What a novel concept.
This 0-2 is just so different than the one 2 years. And I get it. Like there were no expectations 2 years ago, 2 games into the season. Now there's expectations that, hey, this is a team that can make it to the AFC title game. It's just, man, if someone had told you, like, especially in the middle part, ironically, the middle part of CJ's rookie year where he's throwing for 470 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of all teams, that 2 years or nearly 2 years later, we'd be talking about Days of Our Lives drama with CJ in the building and D'Amico and this guy says this and does CJ want that? It's just it's pretty wild where we are right now with all this.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's discouraging, honestly, with that you feel this way about the quarterback, because I would say Houston has kind of a history of kind of excluding the quarterback from blame on the offense. Like even you go back to Carr, there's some people who thought, he was a victim of bad surroundings. Deshaun early on, like it was, and now with CJ, it was kind of like, well, it's Bobby's fault. The offensive line stinks and all that. But we've now gotten to a point, and maybe it's good because it means there's higher expectations, but we've gotten to a point where regardless of how much of a piece of the pie you want to give him on the blame, it's at least there. So here we are.
I also, I do think it's, like, I can understand where CJ is a little pissed about how this all is going down too, by the way. Like I can, like, hey, O-line wasn't awesome my first year. It totally sucked last year. It's still really bad. My offensive coordinator is not on the same page with me again. My wide receivers are hurt again. Like I could see where there's some things that, like, if it was a business and CJ's the general manager, it's like, hey, you misspelled something on that email. Yeah, well, my sales guy didn't sell anything. It's like, yeah, but you got to take care of your stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I get that everything else is tough, but you got to take care of your stuff, and his stuff hasn't looked good. Like,
no, you're right.
If he's going for 384 and they're losing, and he wanted to be pissed, like, I get it. But he's going for 13 completions and they're losing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're a part of it too.
For sure. But I think that there's also something to be said about degradation happening in circumstance. Like we one of the more accepted things right now in football conversation is quarterbacks are a lot more products of their circumstance than we had previously given them credit for. And if you talk about it, year one, was this actually a good offense, or were they able to have some good games within relatively mediocre offense. Then last year, we can obviously see what happens with all the circumstance there. This year, it's just a different circumstance, but there's not been a time where he's been given easy answers or opportunities to have easy answers. And now, because it's 3 years and time has passed, we're not necessarily looking at him and going, has he been built up to the opportunity to have all this? And I will give Landry your credit here, because just last week you were saying, is it inherently a good thing that he's going to have more on his plate? And right now, that question remains in the air with unanswered, I think.
My guess is no on that, by the way. Like, based on the amount of pressure that this team allows, my guess is CJ's not doing a very good job with that element of the offense that he was given. So that'd be my guess on that.
28 points, man, in 2 games. Like that's my. How's he doing with it? They've scored 28 points in 2 games. Hey, should I try to pull a comment up? You guys think I might be able to do this?
I believe in you. I believe in you.
Sean,
how about that? Yeah. Look at that. Arnaldo says, when we start talking the small, I wanted to bring this one up because I think in our group text beforehand, I saw Landry, might have been you talking about the rookies. If it wasn't, I apologize, whoever it had. Can y'all speak on y'all's opinions on Jalen Noel and Woody Marks? I think they both potentially earn the trust of the coordinators.
Well, I made a mistake in thinking that Jalen Noel was Christian Kirk's backup. He's Braxton Berrios' backup. He's just a return guy. So that's my mistake. I guess I overestimated what I was actually seeing in camp, what I saw at Iowa State, and what we actually expected when you draft a luxury pick like that. So it's frustrating there. The Woody Marks thing is crazy. Like I just don't know what is going on here. I don't know if this is Nick Caley doesn't trust rookies, but it's very clear that those guys, they need to be involved more. And I'm assuming that is going to happen, and Nick Caley's going to have no chance but to figure that out. But it would probably be in the best interest to get that guy that was returning punch yesterday, maybe like a quick toss or something like that, like one target. I didn't think, when you if they liked Xavier Hutchinson and Watson this much, don't draft receivers. Like, it's just don't draft receivers. I thought these were luxury picks, but it's insane, especially when you see what these guys are all capable of doing when they get the ball in their hands in some way, shape, or form.
This organization, since DeMeco Ryans got here, has been defined by rookies having big years and trusting young players. CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, Tank Dell in 2023. Kalen Bullock, Kamari Lassiter in 2024, and then you can't find ways to get them on the football field. And I understand Ursery is a rookie and he's out there right away, and he bounced back and he looked a little bit better than week one over there at left tackle, and that's good. But you can't score. You got 3 pieces of your offense that are glued to the bench. They threw and it's not like they gimmicked the ball to Woody Marks yesterday either. It's not like it was some got the defense going this way, dumped it off to him. No, he went out there, ran a route, shook the pants off of the defender, was wide ass open, caught the ball, turned it upfield, and took off. Like, he went out there and made a play. And then they didn't throw the football to him ever again, and they didn't throw the football to the running backs at all in the second half. And it's like, get them on the field. Jaden Higgins can go win contested catches. Throw him a contested catch. Or, I don't know, he's a big body. Run him over the middle as a big-ass target for the guy that can't see guys that are open at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, this has been an issue with what has been purported. Again, we come back to the bill of goods that we've been sold, and we look at the cart and we look at the receipt, and it's not matching up because we were told this is going to be a game plan on offense, that you were going to use players to their strengths. And here you are mentioning the various guys. Woody Marks is a guy who was drafted as a guy you throw the ball to out of the backfield. They just now getting around to it. Jalen Noel, I know all 3 of you gentlemen were with me at training camp seeing probably the dude who got open the best was this rookie wearing, at that point, 82, now wearing 14 in Jalen Noel. The only thing, because I think you guys are right, I don't need to echo you. I think you guys said it perfectly. The only thing I might see that's a possibility here is I remember vividly one of these plays where you have Jakob Johnson on the left side in the shotgun. You have Woody Marks on the right side in the shotgun. Higgins has to be like CJ is, hey, Higgins, come on, get in motion. And by the time he comes in motion, the snap comes from Patterson, and he is in Jakob Johnson's way. So Jakob Johnson can't hit the hole at the right time. That forces Woody Marks to bounce out of play. Instead of hitting the hole where he's supposed to, he's bouncing out, stretching it out, and that's a play that's dead. And I do wonder how much, again, with the way that this system is, and I know Reggie is the system crier now, but how much of this system is because you need the intent and the understanding of all of this. They were depending on the experience of like a Christian Kirk so that we can bring these guys along slow. And they're put in a bad place because of the injuries. I can understand that, but the problem then comes to is at some point you got to be able to look at what you got and say, I'm going to go with the guys that are the best and deal with some of those other things outside of going with like a Justin Watson, who, again, he's going to be where he wants to be, where he's supposed to be. It feels like he doesn't create separation. It feels like you're still losing something compared to having a Jalen Noel on the field.
Christian Kirk, like being the Joe Mixon of this year, where there's the offense, you just don't even recognize it, is really the hope right now for the offense. And I quite frankly, you know, he looked pretty damn good in camp. So maybe there's just some sort of superpower where Christian Kirk comes in and it opens stuff up for everyone else, much like the Mixon factor. I'm saying that with a straight face because if you're looking for hope for this offense, I think that's kind of where you look, and maybe everything else just fills in behind it when it comes to the Kirk. But just like Mixon last year, they thought enough of him to where instead of letting him hit the market, they decided to trade a late round draft pick and not even risk it. So maybe there's like a smaller element where Christian Kirk elevates this offense in a manner that Joe Mixon did. That's your hope right now on offense for me.
Well, and getting it out quick. I mean, you know, Christian Kirk, they want to run quick game. They want to get the ball out of CJ's hands. That's a good guy to get the ball out of your hands quickly too, and let him get a little run after the catch. All right, I'm going to do this again, guys. I'm going to do one more, and then we'll do thoughts on Jacksonville before we get out of here. This is from Abigail. Coach's favorites are the liabilities: Dare, Pierce, Petrie.
Well, Pierce got in the doghouse. How about that? The healthy.
Well, that's why I brought that comment up. We thank you, Abigail, for listening. Is, you know, maybe they are starting to wake up to this teacher's pet, you know, stuff. You know, Damian Pierce being a healthy scratch was a little bit jarring yesterday. Not because I had any emotion over him not playing in the game. Like, wow. I mean, think of how long we've been asking questions of D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, essentially asking in different words every time, like, why is Damian Pierce still active? You know, why is he touching the football? And we get somewhat cryptic answers about, oh, you know, DP had a rough year last year, and you know, it felt like he had some personal stuff going on back in 2023, and they kind of wrote, you know, they gave him a pass for that and putting him on the team in 2024. Pierce being inactive and British Brooks being active yesterday, maybe this is the first step. Although I don't, you know, Dare is a disposable part with his contract. Petrie ain't going anywhere. You know, Petrie, you're locked into Petrie for at least a year or two.
Yeah, good thing they made him prove it for another year. Unfortunately, they didn't, and they gave him a wholly unnecessary contract extension. Dare Goodwill can't be on the field anymore on offense. He had 10 offensive snaps. He had 7 pass block snaps. He allowed a sack. He allowed 2 hurries. He allowed 3 pressures in 7 snaps.
Okay.
In the most nightmarish situation you could imagine, there is not one offensive lineman that could have perpetrated that level of betrayal in pass blocking that Dare Ogunbowale did.
He had a 1.4 pass blocking grade for 7 snaps, 7 pass blocking snaps on PFF. How is that even possible to get a 1.4 on 7 snaps? Did he like slightly nick somebody on their way to the quarterback at one point? Like, with 7 snaps, don't you either get like a 0 or like a 20 something, you know, if you had a couple good ones or whatever? Like 1.4, did he have like a fraction of a good snap? Was his stance good? You know, did he not jump off sides? I'm like, how do you get a 1.4 on 7 snaps for a grade that goes from 0 to 100? Like, I like PFF because at the extreme ends of things, I do think it tells a story about something, and I think it's a usable tool. And they do have a lot of stats on there that are good. Some of the numbers, like some of the grades, like the very specific grades, like pass blocking, run blocking, things like that, I'm like, for rando guys, it's very strange. 1.4. He had a 1.4.
He wrote his name on the paper.
That's exactly, yeah, I guess so.
So apparently, Texans Cap filled me in on this. The lower the number, actually, the worse it is. Like, it just gets like worse and worse. Like as the more bad you get, the more they lower your number. Because like you start with an even
Oh, okay.
And then the worse it gets,
it chips away at it.
yeah. So
Okay.
like he's as close to zero as you could have got with that.
So you don't start with a 0. You start with like a baseline, and
you start with a baseline and then you go down.
Oh, okay. So he was giving away all kinds of. He was just sitting there, just throwing candy to all the kids, and just like looks down. There's 1.4 candies left in his bag. Okay, I gotcha. Jacksonville. Really, the next 2 weeks, guys. They got to win these 2 games. They cannot be 1-3 going into Baltimore in week 5 like that. That cannot happen. Like the best case scenario for me right now is 2-3 going into the bye week. What are your thoughts on Jacksonville as we wind things down here?
I mean, I think they can easily get got by Jacksonville. So I think they're going to have to figure some stuff out. Jacksonville's got a good D-line. Brian Thomas is kind of getting a lot of heat right now. They're talking about potentially a wrist injury. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. Because maybe he's going to be ready to roll, but I think they can easily win these next 2 games. But something's going to have to give, and this stuff that we're talking about with the personnel and stuff is going to have to change, because I don't think Indianapolis runs away with the division, but Indianapolis looks pretty good, and quite frankly, they might have the best coach in the division. Like they might have the best coach in the division. Shane Steichen has as many regular season wins as DeMeco Ryans does through 36 games. They both have 20 wins, and he's done it not with CJ Stroud. He's done it with quarterbacks that just a complete suck of quarterbacks, and he has Daniel Jones. So I'm not sitting here saying that if you fall 2 or 3 games behind Indianapolis before you play them, it's done. But you do got to kind of keep track of them, and you kind of got to be aware. And you also got to be aware of the fact that if Jacksonville improves to 2-0 and they put you to 0-3, then that's just another team you got to worry about. So at least just bring Jacksonville down to your level, and we'll see what happens. I'm not going to be as confident as I was last week, but I do think they can win this game. Jacksonville's been very good to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well said there. I will lean on what DeMeco said, and I mean, he's right in this regard. There's a similar offensive situation. This is going to be a lot more about getting your house in order than I think it is about the Jags, even though you're right. The Jags definitely have some talented receivers. They have a good play caller in Liam Cohen, and defensively they have played pretty solid this year thus far. But yeah, you're definitely going to need to get your house in order. You're going to need to get your personnel right and stretch out, like get more out of your talent that you have on this roster. Arguments that I had be damned about what the high end of that is. And of course, just get your defense back to being, the locked in defense is doing what they do. You should be able to get out with the victory and then continue to figure out what the larger iteration of this team is as you move through the season is.
Hey, DeMeco Ryan said they're close on offense, so I have no reason not to believe him.
Boy, Bobby Slowick said that all last year. That was
I know.
Bobby Slowick coming out of the Dolphins game after the bye week where they scored like 20 points. He came out of the Dolphins game, was like, we're close.
He said it after Green Bay, too. DeMeco said a couple of things today on offense. First of all, he said he trusts these rookies. Okay, well, I don't really see it. And then I tried to just ask how you can help an offensive line. He said, well, it's just all about winning your man-to-man, your one-on-one matchup. I'm like, well, they're screwed. If it's that simple, if it's not get the ball out quickly, chip, help, like all that, the quarterback may be seeing it. If it's just about if it is truly, and I think DeMeco sometimes whenever a question is asked, he just kind of focuses on one little thing, and he doesn't like assuming that guys aren't going to win one-on-one matchups, and he ends up making himself look dumb instead of the person that asked the question. But if truly he is serious, and 1, he believes they're close, and 2, he believes that the whole success of this offense rests on the offensive lineman winning individual matchups, let's start talking draft.
Yeah, I think that's a rhetorical trick by DeMeco. Just like, hey, when I have to talk about offense, I'm keeping this as bland, as generic as possible. So I think that was a little bit way of sidestepping what you were talking about there.
I think they got a shot against Jacksonville. That's who they played after they started 0-2 in 2023, and they won in Jacksonville.
That was the Tank Dell party.
Yeah.
Maybe they can maybe it'll be the Jalen Noel party, because rookies can do things.
That'd be nice. 2 things about this Jacksonville game. 1, the Texans are trying to keep alive maybe my favorite streak in all of sports. They've won 11 straight road games in the AFC South.
Wow.
Oh, gosh.
Did you know that?
That's impressive. I did not know
11 straight road games. This streak goes back to the David Culley season. when they won their last 2 road games in 2021 in the division. And then they won all 3 road games. The only 3 wins in the Lovie Smith year were at Tennessee, at Jacksonville, and then the C.J. Stroud, Jordan Akins game at Indianapolis in Week 18. And then they've won all 6 division road games under DeMeco Ryan. So they've won 11 straight. I think it's 11 straight. It's either 10 or 11. I'll check. For my favorite streak, I should know the exact number, but
impressive regardless.
I think it's 10 because they beat Jacksonville early in the Cully year on the road. I don't know. I'm probably boring people now. It's a double-digit streak.
No, you're not.
So that's number 1.
You should do the top 10 plays of the streak. You should, and one would be the Dalton Schultz catch and the Case Keenum thing. That for sure would be one. And then the drop pass against the Colts. Like, I got 2 for you right there. You got 8 left.
Yep. 2 for me. Stingley's first ever career interception was against Jacksonville.
When he baited Trevor Lawrence in the back left corner of the end zone.
Yeah. I think that was in the streak. That might be early that season. And then they lost to Carson Wentz that year. So that was the one. That was a road loss that they had. But they beat Tennessee. Yeah, it's either 10 or 11. I'll figure it out. By the time we do this next week, we'll hopefully be touting an 11 or 12 game winning streak. The other thing, guys, about this game, this is the first time back to Jacksonville since the Azeez Al-Shaair hit on Trevor Lawrence last year. So I wonder what kind of juice there will be for that. I wonder what kind of – Jacksonville doesn't strike me as an overly vicious crowd or anything like that, but that might be enough. I mean, he essentially ended Trevor Lawrence's season last year. Will the crowd be smelling blood for that? You got an 0-2 Texans team limping in. Azeez is going to be active for this game, obviously. He's their starting inside linebacker. What's that going to look like? What's the first trip back for Al-Shaair since the Trevor Lawrence hit last year, which was the news item of Monday morning that week? It was national news.
Will the 1,800 people there be out for blood?
Yes. Yeah. Will that be the loudest 900 people that we've ever heard in our lives?
I'm going to sacrifice Cody because this morning I had to start off SNL by drinking 8 ounces of apple cider vinegar because that's how sure I was the Texans were going to beat Tampa Bay.
Oh, is that what ACV? ACV was apple cider vinegar.
Not good. It wasn't great, but Cody's so confident in this win that if the Texans lose, he's drinking 12 ounces of that Jacksonville Jaguar pool water that they always have right there. He's drinking 12 ounces of the Jacksonville Jaguars swimming pool water if the Texans don't win this game.
That's the only bath some of those people take all year.
Seth Payne might know someone. We got to get some of that water shipped for Cody.
We'll make it happen. You know what? I'll call up my buddy Jim Ross. He works for Tony Khan in AEW. That's our hookup right there.
There you go.
JR, haven't talked to you in a little while. Can you get me a gallon of pool water from the stadium? Don't ask. All right. We just need a gallon of pool water from a bunch of hicks from the game on Sunday. All right.
Good God Almighty, he's chugging the whole bottle.
He's chugging the bottle. Oh my God, the rash he is going to have after this. Oh my God. All right, boys. Well, that was fun as always. I enjoyed that very, very much. And a reminder to everybody, thank you to everybody who was in the chat interacting with us today. Numbers got up near the 300 mark on the viewership up there. So that was really cool. The viewership growing big time from last week. So that was awesome. Landry, they can get you on the Locker Room with Landry Locker and with Cody on SNL. Cody, they can get you Houston Football with Cody Stutes. And Reggie, they can find you at 10 a.m. tomorrow on Sports Radio 610. I'll be on at 6 a.m. tomorrow with Seth Payne, and Pendergast. Fellas, enjoyed it as always. We'll do it next Monday. Tuesday was a special one this week because of the Monday night game, but we'll do it on Monday night, 6 p.m. here on YouTube. Have a good night, boys.